This fall movie preview brings you Oscar hopeful darlings, feel-good Christmas features, and of course, Halloween bloody horror films. But which fall movie will jump to number one on my list? Stick around and find out. My name is Brian, I am Dragon Movie Guy, and this is the Dragon Movie Guy podcast. Hey everybody, Dragon Movie Guy here. Welcome to another episode of the Dragon Movie Guy podcast. This is my fall movie preview where I and a guest will go over our top 11. There's no good sign for that. Our top 11 movies for fall 2024. We'll talk about the ones we're most excited for. We'll talk about the ones we're kinda, sorta excited for. And we'll talk about the ones we're kind of contractually obligated. I really wish there was a contract. Dollar bills, y'all! But until that happens, my name is Brian. I am Dragon Movie Guy. Thank you for joining us. And I want to know what movies you're most excited to see. Let me know in the comments section below this video. What are your top 5 movies to watch in fall 2024? Are they all Oscar hopeful darlings? Are they Venom 3? Let me know in the comments section below this video. He hosts his weekly live stream, JimAndRobOverAnalyzeMovies, talking about everything from the biggest Hollywood blockbusters down to the smallest independent films or even foreign films if they have a good message to send. And if you need a talented voiceover artist, you can find him on Fiverr.com. He has a full audio suite for all of your voiceover audio needs. Please welcome to the Dragon Movie Guy podcast, Rob Christensen. Rob?
Hello, sir. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thank you for coming on.
I'm giving you a chance, sweetie. We are Venom!
Your number 11 film is Venom: The Last Dance, or Venom 3.
That is correct.
Yes, Tom Hardy coming back. A couple of the cast changes, though.
Michelle Williams, I suspect her price was too high, and they were like, it's a third. What do we care?
Well, she was kind of underutilized in both the first couple
Juno
films.
Temple will be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Juno Temple will be fine. Chiwetel Ejiofor plays a good second lead in Doctor Strange, so why not add him to this film? So tell me about Venom: The Last Dance, Venom 3.
They're perfectly fine films. Now, that said, I've already noted Michelle Williams, she was part of the charm of the earlier installments, such as they were. So I'm not expecting much either. The woman she wrote the previous 2 versions, the director,
Kelly Marcel.
Thank you. But she is a first-time director. I'm not expecting much. I'll probably be fine with it. While I'm kind of looking forward to it, I got to admit, there's a couple on your list where it's like, oh, I didn't look hard enough. I could have had that on my list, and this would have dropped off. Yeah, so I'm predicting, actually, it's going to get a below-average IMDb score. It is, it's the sequel to the sequel of a character that no one's really that interested in. Yeah, I don't see this doing that well, but I'm still kind of looking forward to it. Like I said, I think it'll be fine.
I have Kelly Marcel's part of her IMDb page up on the screen. Because this is her directorial debut. I just took a screenshot of her writing credits, and it is sort of interesting because she was the screenwriter for Cruella. She was the screenwriter for Saving Mr. Banks, both of which are good films.
She's an A-list. Like, she's a legit feature film writer.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't question her chops, but still, first time is first time. First time in a big studio picture. I hope she makes the boss happy.
They are fine.
They're fine.
But that's what those movies are. They're fun.
Had to quit.
But, they're sort of like Black Adam. They both made money, which is the big thing with sequels and superhero films, and I'm okay with that. And, and of all the Sony movies that aren't Spider-Man,
dude,
I would say that
will make money.
Yeah, that's true too. But of the Sony Spider-Verse films that aren't Spider-Man, this is the Venom films are the only decent ones out there. So decent, fine, That's as nice as we're going to get, I think, with these two films.
Oh, yeah.
I like the second one better than the first one because the first one spent too long trying to figure out how to say symbiote instead of symbiote. But when I see the trailers for this film, it kind of okay. So they're on the run. It's not much of a story, but it is Tom Hardy.
Yeah,
And,
like I said, he'll be fine. Like, he'll be better than fine. He is one of the writers. Him and Ms. Marcel did co-write it. I mean, but I am not expecting much. And if it gets a below average, or what I call a below average, like below 6.2 on an IMDb rating, that's below average to me. I'll be like, yeah, no, that's what I predicted. That's what I expected. You know.
So why
anything better than that? I'd be like, wow.
Yeah,
good for you.
I'm kind of the same way. So I guess if that's the question, if neither one of us have better than fine expectations for Venom: The Last Dance, how did this end up on your list? I mean, granted, it is number 11, but it is still on your list. There's
Honestly,
a lot of movies coming out this fall.
Listen, there's always some that ends up on a list, especially when you got 11. Who the comes up with 11 for a list?
It's an odd number. It's more clickable.
It is an odd number. And honestly, I'm like kind of, well, I'd still see it. I'm still kind of interested. Again, I'm not expecting much, but I'm trying to weigh how I think it will do with most audiences versus, kind of thing I enjoy. But like I said, I'll wait until I've got 2 movies on your list highlighted on where it's like, oh, I should have picked that. But I'll wait until we get to that point on your list. Believe me, you're number 11. No. That was at the bottom of my list for a while. And then it's like, nope. Venom pushed it off the bottom.
So we're both kind of meh on Venom 3. It should be fun. It's probably not going to be earth shattering. Do you think it's going to be just more of the same of the first 2 Venom films?
No. I will not be surprised by anything. At no time will I be going, wow, I didn't see that coming, unless it's really terrible. Or really good. Like that, I'll be surprised if it's really good. But I expect I'm going to see the exact same thing I've seen in all these kind of movies. And I'll be fine with that.
The weird thing is I love Tom Hardy. I like the character of Venom, but I don't know if Eddie Brock / Venom is a good fit for Tom Hardy. Do you think he's miscast in this role at all?
Yeah. Really, I have no opinion on that. And honestly, it's got to be really glaringly bad miscasting before I give a rat's you-know-what. I'm one of those guys where it's like, if no one ever talked about, what is this good casting or is that bad casting or any of that, I'd be happy. I'd be like, great, less bull.
If you have to even ask about casting, there's something a little off, I think. Because, as they say, 90% of directing is good casting. So, the fact that we have an Oscar-nominated actor, we've had, in the past, we had Michelle Williams as an Oscar-winning actress in these films, and it doesn't seem to make a difference how good the actors are. It just kind of is very middling.
By the time a talent is cast, like so many other things are happening, right? That you're like, what does anyone expect out of the talent after, especially a big machine? Marvel, any of these big franchise operations, whether it be Sony, Marvel, however their corporate configuration is, that is a huge machine with a ton of people with a lot of notes. I think Dakota Johnson is, I think she's an but I also recognize she's got talent. She has skills. I saw Madam Web. I forced myself to watch the whole thing. And I felt bad for her because, it's like like she's got control over that kind of thing. She has nothing, nada, squat control, and she is the named star. So
Yeah.
if we're talking about poor casting, there are already a bunch of problems.
Yeah, and I
Long
think
before that person came to, well, at least I'm getting paid.
and for whatever reason, that is just something that pops up in the Sony Spider-Verse, the Sony Marvel universe. It just, for some reason, there's something that's lost in translation. If it's Amy Pascal, if it's the studio itself,
So
who knows?
many people,
Yeah.
so many. And honestly, I mean, this is something you and I have talked about before. It is hard to make a great movie. It's hard. Most movies are average. And the more people you get involved, the more, well, like a committee. No real pro screenwriter is actually worried about AI, except how the employer is going to try and screw them out of money. But they're not going, oh, wow, yeah, the committee of committees will write good scripts.
Well,
it's hard enough when you get the committee think already. We see that in a lot of this generic mush. So, yeah, yeah. There you go. That's way on a wide tangent on what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't care about the casting.
It's always interesting, too, when you talk about someone's directorial debut, like with Kelly Marcel. They always say that if you can get a directorial debut in a sequel in an already existing franchise, that's a good soft landing way to get your PGA card.
For her, all she was really got to do is deliver the product the studio is expecting. Like all these big, remember all the drama about Madam Web and how could they write these, how could they hire these writers, et cetera, et cetera. They've written so much crap before. And I, like a lot of other people, are like, you know what? They made the boss happy. That's why they kept getting hired.
This is true, too.
They delivered the product the boss asked for. Who cares about
and didn't make money. That's, it is show business. It is the business part of show business. So
they kept the boss happy.
Yeah, is the boss happy?
And they
did it make
knew
money?
after they let it go, it'll turn into something completely different. Movies are written 3 times: in the writing, in the production, and then in the edit suite.
Are you planning to watch this in theaters when it comes out?
Maybe. That's a big maybe.
That's a very dedicated maybe.
But, it's one of those movies where it's like it probably will look no better than in the theater. You know what I mean? Like, there's some movies where I'm like, there's some movies on my, hey, that looks cool, but that can wait till streaming. This is, it's probably going to look its best in the theater, and it ain't getting better after.
Well, and even
that
even
is its peak.
Even this screen cap of the CGI morphed over Tom Hardy's body. I'm hard on CGI, and this exact screen cap is an exact reason why. I think the CGI in general keeps getting, closer to the uncanny valley, but it hasn't crossed it yet. And when I see stuff like this screen capture, it just kind of goes to show, well, not everything can be Pixar.
It's always a tough one, with that kind of thing. Once you're starting to do these even more cartoony superhero characters, that's what you're going to get. There's certain things that are already priced into the market has priced that in. I have priced this kind of CGI in. I'm not expecting any better.
Ultimately, is it going to be fun? That's the big question. The first 2 films, first one was kind of Second film, I think, was more fun, a little too horror for me, but better than the first, and so hopefully this one, I think. This is one that I don't plan to watch this in theaters, even though, as you say, this is probably the best place, the best looking that it's going to be is in theaters.
Yeah.
But I definitely going to catch it on streaming at some point.
I did say maybe.
Maybe, yes.
Maybe.
The qualified maybe. It is interesting.
No, not a qualified maybe. A solid maybe.
A solid maybe. Made out of balsa wood.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Ghosts aren't real. Only gullible people believe that kind of crap.
Beetlejuice.
You and the boys stand guard.
Beetlejuice.
Nobody gets through.
Beetlejuice.
I'm needed upstairs.
You mentioned 3 times, and my number 11 film, if you mention something 3 times, Michael Keaton will come back to a role that he did 40 years ago. Beetlejuice. The movie's so nice, they named it twice, kind of, sort of. I loved the first Beetlejuice film. For whatever reason...
As did I, you bet.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, indie westerns where people die aside, we're not getting Alec Baldwin back. Gina Davis is now over 40, so she's unemployable in Hollywood. So we have Winona Ryder back. We have Jenna Ortega showing up as Winona Ryder's daughter, and we have Tim Burton back in the director's chair. I like Tim Burton. I want to love Tim Burton, but I do love this Tim Burton film. I love that they went practical effects. And yeah, there is some CGI here, but it looks like they're recapturing the tone and the feeling from the first film.
There's always CGI.
Yeah, I mean...
Every film has it. But
yeah.
You're absolutely right. It does have a practical effects vibe.
When you have as much practical effects as you can, like the first film did back in the 80s, back in 86, 88, it looks better because there's more of an organic feel to it. Even if you can tell, yeah, it's just a puppet on strings, there's something that beats that over...
That's stop motion.
Yeah, stop motion, all the old tricks that have been kind of slowly lost
stop
to time
motion,
in CGI.
claymation, like some of the things Burton likes to do.
Yeah. The interesting thing, too, is we're not getting the Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis characters coming back. I do like the aspect of, it's been 30, 35 years, so we're getting Winona Ryder's daughter as Jenna Ortega. What are your thoughts on Jenna Ortega coming to the Beetlejuice franchise?
Here, let me talk out the other side of my ASS. Great casting choice. You know what? I get the gag. It didn't poke me in the eye when I watched the trailer. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Again, beyond that, didn't care. It's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, I get why they cast her. There's some fortuitous timing here. This comes out where there's probably still people are thinking of her in that Wednesday thing that, on
Which
Netflix.
Tim Burton directed the pilot episode.
Yeah. So, yeah, so it's got, you get the gag, you get it. Beyond that, it'll really come down to, all right, does this work? The Wednesday character is she's the creepy outsider. Now I just want to be a normal girl and everyone thinks I'm creepy. Well, I don't know, you live in the weirdo house with your creepy ass mother.
The spiritual one from the first film in Winona Ryder now is the mother of the non-believing Wednesday Addams. Or I don't even know what her character name is in this film, but I do love what the effects look like they're doing. I do love what they try to do with the Wednesday character in the Wednesday streaming show. It looks honestly like they just kind of wanted to have an excuse to reuse the private school outfits from season 1 of Wednesday and just put them into another feature film and get some mileage out of it. And, it's Jenna Ortega and an outfit, so why not? Interesting here, Patrick from Have Cheetah Will View says, Winona Ryder looks older than Michael Keaton. I think she...
Oh, come on, man. Don't do that to Winona.
Well, I think she's older than Michael Keaton was in the original film. But, it's been 30 years. It's been 30... It is... and even with Hollywood math, and, Hollywood math is always actual age minus 10 or minus 20 in some cases.
Honestly,
as long as she's not shoplifting from the set, I think we're okay. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, you know what? It really isn't relevant to the gag, or maybe it even supports the gag better. She looks like the mother. Had kid a little later in life, like a lot of Gen X parents did, and so yeah, got this whiny late-aged teenager.
Who herself is 23-ish in real life. So, everyone is kind of aged down a little bit in Hollywood. And I think the other thing that I really like here is bringing Catherine O'Hara back as Winona Ryder's mom. That's a nice touch. And, it's always
Mother
good to see
Dietz.
Catherine O'Hara. Yeah, Lydia Dietz, yes.
Yeah.
I love, I love that first film. And is this film going to be as good? Probably not, because... Let's be honest. Beetlejuice itself, the first film, is a classic. There's a reason why it's lasted this long. I always say, though, I worry about any sort of comedy sequel that takes longer than 10 years to do. And this one took 30 some odd years. And yeah, I guess it's a sci-fi horror comedy, but it is still a comedy first and foremost. It's not horror first, it is comedy first. So that part of it really does worry me, as much as Anchorman 2, as much as Zoolander 2, as much as Dumb and Dumber. It's different than those films, but it is still a comedy, so that part worries me a lot. That's why it's number 11 on the list and not higher. Fingers crossed.
You know what? Somebody said, "Hey, we're going to this." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're going to that." Myself, it really was the dueling, how uninterested. You've got 2 unasked for sequels. No one was asking for Beetlejuice sequels. And nor, though, was there great clamoring after the disappointment that was the second Venom movie. Everyone going, "I want more of this." No one was saying that. I'm really uninterested in going back 30 years. And when I saw the trailer, although you see some neat gags, I was like, you know what? It'll be average. That's what people think. Tim Burton is not at the top of his game, hasn't been for a number of films. I see this as, I want a paycheck. Oh, that might be a little harsh. I just don't think Tim Burton has made a really special film in a number of years. And sequels usually aren't where you go, okay, finally, I'm gonna let loose. Even Wednesday, an entertaining young adult. I don't think you're like, wow, it's not even chaos, but it's certainly no Maniac.
I had a screen capture of Tim Burton's recent directorial gigs, and really, other than Wednesday, there's nothing on Tim Burton's IMDb that, oh my god, that was a great film. I mean, there's a few decent ones here and there, but it's nothing the last 20 years that is, other than Big Eyes. I liked Big Eyes, but other than that, there's not really anything the last 20 years that really stands out.
I think that was his
filmography.
best reviewed film in the last several years was Big Eyes.
It is cool that Michael Keaton still looks like Michael Keaton enough to play Beetlejuice 35, 36 years later. I love that. I love that Michael Keaton's still well enough to play Beetlejuice, but other than that, I'm excited, but I'm not as excited as I thought I would be. Love the first film. Love Michael Keaton. Hopefully it's on par. And it's not just the search for more money. So that is my number 11 flick. My Dead Friend Zoe. This stars Sonequa Martin Green from the lead character of Star Trek Discovery. Natalie Morales is also in here. Ed Harris is also in here. This is sort of a little odd, though, because we don't have a trailer yet, but it is a comedy about war. So tell me about My Dead Friend Zoe.
The gag is this woman going through some stuff, all of a sudden manifests her dead friend, her fellow Afghan vet who died, and is talking to her while she has some big sort of life-changing confrontation with her father, a Vietnam vet. It got a ton of indie buzz. So it won the audience award at the this year's South by Southwest. Yep. Big cultural festival conference, yada yada.
Down in Austin.
It currently has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, 72 on Metacritic, and early IMDb votes giving it a 7.2 rating. There's another reason it's at the bottom of my list, not at the top. It sounds interesting. It could be really cool. I got to admit, though, like these players get interviewed and they're like, it's about the heart. It's about this. It's about that. It's like, tell me what the actual movie is about. Give me a trailer. I don't want to hear about the feels. I get there'll be feels. I get it's a drama, with some comic moments, or it's comedy with some dramatic moments. I get it. It's about war and death and all that other stuff. Just give me what the movie's about. That said, it's got that buzz. I'm kind of interested in seeing it. I got to admit, though, all these things that I'm swearing about now make me, it's like, triumph of the human spirit. So I'm like one of those.
But it's
I'm
a comedy.
kinda caught.
It's a comedy.
But the triumph of the human spirit, no comedy should be about triumph of the human spirit.
Well,
So
and if it is, where's
I
the
am
trailer?
not-
Where's the trailer in all this?
Exactly.
I don't get why we don't have a trailer
But
yet. It's a film that comes out in 2 months.
Well, and that's the thing, though, is like these things, they get made and then they get sold at a festival. They could probably still retooling the movie. The distributor goes, we really need some more polish here, with the soundtrack, the sound design. I'm not talking about changing the fundamental movie, changing the storytelling or anything. They may be doing stuff to really help market it. I find that frustrating. That said, I'm still kind of interested. That's why I predict it'll be in what I'd call average, but on the high side of average. A better than fine, but not great film. Nothing where it's like, dear God, I'll remember this forever. I mean, I'm thinking some of my favorite movies of the last 5 years, really since Jim and I started doing the show, since I met you, since doing these things. One of them is still, came out last year or 2 years ago, The Zone of Interest. That movie sticks with me. Coda still actually sticks with me. I know it's a feel good and everything, but that sticks with me. Emily the Criminal sticks with me. I'm not sure this is going to be one of those. That's why I'm saying it's going to be one of those good average movies. I know that sounds like sophistry. It was scored between 6.2 and 7.2 on IMDb rating, maybe towards the upper side. But like for all my bitching, that's why it's number 10 and not number 4 or number 3 or number 2. I'm interested, but I'm not that excited. And to cut to the chase so we can keep the machine moving, I don't know. Nothing about this movie says you must see it in the theater. So there's a good chance I won't see it in the theater. I'll see it on streaming. There's a good chance.
The premise of this is it's a bit confusing to me, and anytime you have a wartime setting kind of a thing, or after war, kind of the effects of war, I think it can be healthy to use comedy and humor to laugh at things and kind of help process all kinds of feelings.
Oh heck!
Like if
Done
you
all
look
the
back
time.
at
MASH.
Yeah, MASH, and
it goes back forever. Catch-22.
Jojo Rabbit.
Kelly's Heroes. Jojo Rabbit. Comedy is fine, especially dealing with some of this big stuff.
My only problem with this is the fact that we haven't gotten a trailer yet. That part just
it's irritating.
It's sticking in my craw because when you have films that go out in film festivals, usually films that make it to film festivals, okay, yeah, sure, they're a little artsy fartsy, but they're usually well constructed. And there's no reason to not
and
have
especially a movie that won an audience award.
Yes.
That's almost always a great crowd pleaser. It's not super arty. I really believe the distributor, the people who ended up buying the film, they're just pissing around with it. They're holding on it for whatever reason. They just can't get their trailer together. Beyond that, I don't think it has anything to do with the quality of the movie. It's just they've got some marketing plan and this all fits into it. And I am now, for those who are just listening in the background, I'm now making the jerk off motion. So there you go. So that's my story on that. What's your number 10, man?
Yeah, so with that visual, I think we're going to move on.
You're going to accomplish big things.
There's no way we can afford $50K a year.
This is the best place for getting into top-tier schools.
So what's my cut?
150 grand.
My number 10 is Bad Genius. This is a story. It is another film festival. It is a little indie film. It is about the daughter of an immigrant, and she's a genius. But she's a bad genius. It's, we kind of give it away in the title right there. But the story is where it looks like it gets
to no good.
Yes. And you think about Breaking Bad, you have a brilliant person in Walter White, and instead of breaking good, he breaks bad. Whoa, the premise here. But instead we have an immigrant family, so you have a genius, daughter of an immigrant, played by Kalina Leong. The dad is played by Benedict Wong, of Marvel fame, of Doctor Strange fame. But Bad Genius is one of those where the trailer looks very, very specific. This is from a director that I have
It's a heist movie.
It is a heist movie. It is where she basically is cheating on tests at a rich school and selling those test results to her rich friends, and hoping that selling those answers to tests to her rich friends will then make her popular with said rich friends. It's a pretty basic premise, but it looks like there's a lot of good character work done here. Taylor Hickson plays her pretty blonde friend. It looks like a well-done, pretty straight-ahead film, but I think the point of view from the main character, is hopefully where this film stands out. The trailer is very specific, a lot of extreme close-ups, a lot of whip pans, a lot of very specific points of view that we see from Kalina Leong's point of view. A little bit of talk about money and class and all that kind of stuff. So it is my number 10 film. It probably should be higher. Have you seen the trailer for Bad Genius?
I did. I looked into it. It's a remake of a Thai movie, 2017. I think it came out. For me, it's a first-time director with, for all intents and purposes, except for Benedict Wong, relative unknown cast. One of the reasons it didn't make my list, even though it's got a neat premise and I like a heist, is I'm like, I am not expecting much from this. I hope I'm wrong and you're right, but I really expect this to be a below average thing. It's only getting a limited release. You can see in the press from Deadline when the people who bought it, we can't wait to bring this thrill ride to audiences everywhere in 4 theaters. Like it's getting a limited release, and then I think it's just going to end up on a streamer's back catalog where it'll die the death I suspect it deserves. Baby.
Looks like it has a good decent performance. So, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be watching this in theaters. This is the kind of film that I think is going to do well on streaming. If it does do well, Emily the Criminal, I'm hoping.
Don't feed the dog. We're not the only ones starving.
One touch without a robot is all it takes.
Never Let Go. Interesting on this one, we have Academy Award winner Halle Berry as a single mom out in the woods raising 2 sons, and then the things start coming at her. Tell me about
some alleged post-apocalypse. They must be connected to the house, which is the thing that allegedly protects them. Of course, the kids are starting to think maybe mother just won't, cut the apron strings.
Yeah, literally cut the string because she tells them to literally tie the rope around them so they don't get dragged away.
They can't. They must not let go. Let go once. Whatever the evil is out there will get them. Maybe your audience may not know this. I'm not a big horror guy. Maybe the only horror movie I'll see. I kind of like the premise. That said, the more I learned about it, I'm like, I think in my notes I got it. But on a deeper look, I'm not expecting much. This will be one of those, there's a couple here. We got to get higher up on your list where I go, oh, this could have been ditched for, there's a couple of flicks on DMG's list, on your list, Brian, that I'm like, I could have done that instead. But so there you go. Not expecting much, notwithstanding that it's Halle Berry. The director, if memory serves, has quite a bit of experience on low-grade horror. Like it's not, and Halle Berry, I think, is now in that stage of her career where it's like, Halle got to get paid. Is Halle getting paid? Halle's doing the picture. Like that union was woof.
It is sort of interesting to note that Alexander Aya, his IMDb, I I have his directing credits up on the screen. You know, there's nothing really that jumps out at me here. There is...
Because there isn't.
Yeah, you know, Piranha 3D.
There's a reason.
I always like saying trying out new talent and that sort of thing. And I think...
Piranha 3D.
Yeah, so... you know, I'm hoping that the kid actors in this film that are playing her sons, Anthony Jenkins and Percy Daggs...
Who cares?
Yeah,
They'll end up in a decent film at a later date. Every actor has to do some work in horror. No one holds that against these performers. They're not gonna go, weren't you in that piece of horror 5 years ago? They go, yeah, I got experience and paid. They're like, good on you, young man.
And, you know, you never know. This could be a good film, and we're just kind of busting his chops because it looks metaphorical.
The premise got me interested, but like I said, once I look deeper, I'm like, oh, this may not be good. There you go. That's what I got to say on that, brother.
And look, to be fair, I think neither you nor I are huge horror fans. So if a horror film does grab our attention that says something, this did not make it onto my list, but it does look, you know, like it could be interesting. So, you know, fingers crossed. If you have Halle Berry, you know, hopefully that's a good thing. And
it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing to have Halle Berry.
It's not a predictor of crap.
Yeah.
But it's no longer a predictor of quality. All you know is you're going to get a real movie star. You know,
that's true.
It'll be competently performed.
And hopefully if we do actually end up seeing this film, hopefully it'll be pleasantly surprising to us.
I'd be happy with average.
Yeah.
My prediction is below average.
So are you planning to watch this one in theaters?
Probably not.
Probably not, okay.
I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian.
My Russian is terrible. 15 cash up front.
Deal.
I am telling you, you do not know this guy. We're getting in an old ASAP.
My number 9 film is Anora. This is starring Mikey Madison. This is starring, though, no one else that I've ever heard of. This is a small indie film, and basically Mikey Madison plays a sex worker. She plays a sex worker who meets up with the son of a Russian oligarch.
An Uzbeki American sex worker.
And they get married, they go to Vegas, and of course the oligarch is none too happy that his son is going local, going native.
Whore.
She's a whore, and she's American. Two of the worst things I'd imagine for an oligarch an oligarch of any kind.
I'm sure the American part isn't the problem.
Oh, probably that too.
Part. You know?
And, you know, I do love, though, you know, I'm someone that lives in Las Vegas. I've lived in Las Vegas for the better part of 20 years, 18 years now. So the fact that they actually got on a plane, came over, you know, for a little indie film to come over and be at the little White Wedding Chapel to actually shoot on Fremont Street is kind of a nice touch that they didn't just try and make it look like Las Vegas by having Toronto in the background and like, oh, there's a palm tree there. They actually
then a cut in of some generic, something they downloaded from Envato Elements.
Yeah,
we paid a license for that.
Exactly. Get the stock footage. I like the fact that they actually came to Vegas. You know, Mikey Madison has done a lot of YA, young adult type content in the past, and the fact that this is one of her first leading roles, if not the first leading role for her, I think, you know, it's a bit predictable. I think this film is probably, you're going to get a lot of you kind of get a lot of what the story is in the trailers. Interesting, though, it is from writer-director Sean Baker, who also did...
Indie Darling.
Yeah, Indie Darling did Red Rocket that came out last year, which got a lot of positive buzz. Yeah, Tangerine also.
About a sex worker.
Yeah.
A sympathetic portrait of a sex worker.
And so he knows how to tell edgy indie movie stories. So I am hopeful, I am optimistic about this. Yeah, it looks a little predictable, but you know, if it's a little edgy, if it's a little sexy, why not? And if they actually took the time to come to Vegas to shoot part of this film, it shows a commitment, I think, to the details, that the details of this story matter, at least a little bit. So
the texture.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I love the cinematography that we're seeing here. It's very dark. It's very brooding. I'm not really into dark and brooding most of the time, but I do think that that aesthetic works when you're telling a Vegas story, and I think it looks like it might work in this story. So for all those reasons, I am optimistic. That's why it's number 9 on my list, but because it is predictable, it's not higher on my list, but I do think that there are some talented actors here, led by Mikey Madison. So, have you seen the trailer for Anora?
It's interesting. I'm fine with this not being on my list. Because it's not this particular kind of melodrama is not my jam. I've just, it's not something I'm interested in. Even though you can see there's that bit of Eastern Promises mixed in with, leaving Las Vegas. You think this film premiered at Cannes, won the Palme d'Or, 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, 89 Metacritic score. Lots of early reviews, mostly from those people who've seen it at these film festivals it's in. I'm actually expecting, while it's not my jam, I'm expecting above average. This has got, it's like, oh, that should be on an early Oscars kind of, hey, maybe this will be, on somebody's long list. Early, give it some good odds, and it should be on some people's Oscar predictions list. So yeah, I'm expecting great things. I just not my jam.
Well,
that's why I can't say I'm excited about it, but I am interested in how it does. Because I think it'll do great.
The fact that you're bringing up Oscars is interesting because there was that Best Actress nominee a year ago, blanking on her name or what the film was, but it was about the female alcoholic in Texas who got the Oscar nomination, and there was some controversy surrounding it for how they were promoting the film. But that also kind of an edgy indie film that you wouldn't expect to get Oscar nominations or attention, but I could see if that film passes.
Leaving Las Vegas, by the by.
Leaving Las Vegas, okay.
It was leaving Las Vegas.
The fact that I didn't know that off the top of my head is a shonda on my Vegas stuff.
Ashamed.
Yeah, I like the fact that the Academy has been considering non-traditional nominations the last couple of years. That is interesting that you would mention that could be on someone's list. It's just got that kind of vibe.
Yeah. It's got a bit of, I could see early Oscars buzz when people start really talking about it.
Yeah.
Although I suppose you could say DMG, you and I are starting that conversation now.
We are. We're having
like
the conversation.
Talking about Christmas before Halloween.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Oscars in September.
Damn it. Yes. Look, I have not seen this film yet, but you did more research on my choice than I did. The fact that we're getting a lot of good reviews and scores already, I think at least shows that the critics like it. Whether or not audiences will like it as much, we will see. But
there's always kind of a squeeze. We'll get more into that. A couple of my later choices where I'm like, okay, it did well here, but I'm expecting a little less.
And also I think it is interesting to note that we did get a full trailer out of this. So the fact that we didn't for my 10 cents.
It's really sticking in your craw.
Well, indie movies.
It's bugging you more than it bugs me.
Yeah, indie movies. You got to promote these things. So, I'm glad we do have a trailer for Anora, and I hope it is good. I do plan to watch this in theaters.
There's only 2 ways out of the killer's game, Joseph.
Joe, are you okay?
I'm afraid I've got some bad news, Joe.
I'm calling in every hit in Europe, you hear me?
Let's move on to your number 8 film. This is The Killer's Game. This is coming out September 13th.
Number 9.
Dave Bautista. A bunch of familiar faces, including Sofia Boutella. This is including Pom Klementif. It looks like a lot of fun. It's from the producers of John Wick, and it looks like a fairly familiar story to John Wick fans. Tell me about The Killer's
Here's the gag. Dave Bautista, he's an experienced assassin, living a double life, falls in love, then finds out he has horrible sickness, decides to have himself bumped off in the way he lived, puts a contract out on himself. Of course, we find out, wait a second, you're not really sick, but you should get your eyes checked. That's a joke from the trailer, actually. But you kind of get the gag. So all of a sudden, you got all these people out to get him because he's had a long life of bumping people off, might have picked up some enemies, and now he can't call off the contract. Will he survive? Will he live a good life with his true love and all that other BS? I think this will be on the lower side of average, and I'd be happy with that. I think I'll enjoy it, but I am not expecting great things either. It'll really come down to how good the fight scenes, the action scenes are. But both, of course, Batista, but Sofia Boutella and Palm Clementif, they both have that experience. It'll be fun to see them have fun. But yeah, don't get me wrong, I am not expecting greatness of this. Will I see it in the theater? I hope to. I plan to. Because, again, this will be another one of those mediocrities, those average movies, those perfectly fine films that will look its best in the theater.
You know, it will
not age well on my big screen TV.
Yeah, very true. You know, when I watched the trailer for this the first time, it kind of got on the initial list of films that could make it onto my list.
Yeah,
but
lower on the list, but, still there.
Yeah, it didn't quite make it, though, because it does kind of have that feeling to me of being a tweener. Like, it kind of feels like a tweener where it's a nice low-budget film like John Wick was, but it kind of feels like it was initially intended for streaming. So the fact that we're getting a theatrical release on something that kind of feels like a streaming film, I kind of get Gray Man vibes, where it kind of feels like this is the type of film that should have had one more pass through the writer's room kind of thing to make it a feature film. So, and look, I'm not saying that this is going to be like the greatest character work ever, and the fact that they're promoting it as from the producers of John Wick, that's always a little sketchy, I think, in my opinion, but I do think this could be a lot of fun. Dave Bautista does, in general, have good taste in solo projects. So, I'm optimistic about this film. I'm not really planning on watching it in theaters, but this is the kind of thing that does feel like it's tailor-made for streaming. And if this is the kind of thing, though, that if it does get a lot of word of mouth of, oh my God, you have to go watch this, you have to go watch the action scenes in this on the big screen, I'll consider it, but I'm not planning on watching this as of now, at least. But, things could change.
I hope to see this in the theater. I can't make any promises, though. In part, there's some of the stuff is just not going to make it to Winnipeg. I suspect this will. It is a perfect multiplex, fourth theater down, maybe not in the big one, but one of the decent-sized ones. It'll appeal to the kids.
Do you get a lot of indie films?
To the 14 to 18-year-olds.
Do you get a lot of indie films in Winnipeg?
A fair bit. We've got enough theaters, and we do have an art house theater, but not as many as we used to. They're really only now 2 chains in Canada, and there's only one chain that has most of the theaters, and then there's another chain that has one multiplex. So really got restricted, but I am happy to more elaborate on that on your next choice that I have an opinion on.
I did want to point out too that the director of this film is J.J. Perry. He also directed Day Shift, which was, I think, the Kevin Hart vampire killing Netflix film. So, and that looked like a comedy. I did not see that film, but it looked worth watching just from the trailer. So,
it was fine. Like all these things, it was fine.
It was fine.
Perfectly fine. Especially a lot of Netflix action flicks, sci-fi action flicks and that, you're never, you're getting Great for Netflix.
Any optimism on the romantic vibes between Sofia Boutella and Dave Bautista?
Yeah, it's wait and see.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like it might be fun.
I feel like you're having a midlife crisis.
Well, I feel like you're high on mushrooms, so you don't know shit.
I'm actually kind of hot for being middle-aged.
I'm 39 years old.
Oh, that is middle-aged.
No, it's not. I am a very young adult.
Can I at least touch my old ass?
Oh my God, you need to be locked up.
My number 8 choice. This one actually does have a little bit of swearing in the title. This is, of course, a film with Aubrey Plaza, so there's going to be a little bit of saucy language. This is My Old Ass. Maisie Stella stars as a teenager or a college type student age person, early 20s.
College bound, senior,
yes.
maybe.
And she goes and...
freshman university.
So she goes camping with a few friends, they take a few drugs, and she wakes up and sees herself at 40 in the form of Aubrey Plaza. And Aubrey
But it's
Plaza...
not one of those body switcheroo things.
No, this is not Freaky Friday. This is... What I'm not sure, though, is she sees Aubrey Plaza as her at 39, 40 years old, but we don't know if anyone else can see her too. So I'm not sure if this is going to be I can see dead people sort of thing where no one else can see her, or whether she at 40 in Aubrey Plaza is being seen.
She's the only one who can see.
Yeah, so
yeah, that's what I gather. And then they have some sort of weird phone connection even after she comes down off her drugs.
Yes, exactly. So anytime you can have a coming of age film, anytime you can have Aubrey Plaza playing Aubrey Plaza, I am definitely interested in a film like that. Plus, Aubrey Plaza does a lot of indie films. She did a film a couple years ago called Black Bear that was really good. She also did...
She makes solid choices.
Yes, Emily the Criminal, obviously a great, highly acclaimed indie film from 2 years ago. So... because of all that, I'm excited for this film. Yeah, it looks a little predictable, but also the cinematography. They didn't shoot on a soundstage somewhere. They actually went out to a lake and shot on a lake in the sun with trees and water, and we know how hard that is.
Locations are cheap.
Yeah,
the lake ain't charging them.
This is true too. So. And I've never seen Maisie Stella in anything else before, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not she can hold her own with Aubrey Plaza. Also, interesting of note, we're so used to seeing Aubrey Plaza as the young person in an ensemble, Parks and Rec, all that kind of stuff. So the fact that she's now playing the older version of a character, and she's the experienced one. Yeah, in a young adult.
Not even 40.
Yeah,
I'm 39.
39.
I'm a young adult.
So it'll be interesting to see her if she can kind of make that step up in maturity. So I'm excited for this film. I don't know whether I'm going to watch it in theaters or wait for streaming. There's nothing really that screams to me that I have to watch this in theaters. But I do love good character pieces, and I did thoroughly enjoy Emily the Criminal in theaters, even though that's not particularly visual. So I probably will try to watch My Old Ass in theaters. That plus, I just like saying My Old Ass, and I'm trying to picture Aubrey Plaza saying My Old Ass as much as possible. So so I do plan on watching this. Are you a fan of Aubrey Plaza?
I gotta admit, here, let me. I gotta admit, when I first saw the title, the movie that came into my mind was somebody who's had their old ass connected to them, and it was talking to them. That's really what I thought of. And then I watched the trailer. Okay, that's not the gag here. It's a different gag, and I'm fine with that. The trailer made me laugh. This is one of the 2 movies on your list I wish was, I could easily ditch. Well, you know what? I could easily ditch, Never Let Go for My Old Ass. I think I would enjoy it. It did, again, it's another success it premiered at Sundance. Not easy to do. 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, 78 Metacritic score, got a solid 7.2 on IMDb on the early reviews. I think that really means it'll be a solid average on the high end of average, but between 6.2 and 7.2 on in the end in audiences. But for me, I think this is right up my alley and I'll enjoy it. And if it, this is the kind of thing I think could make it to Winnipeg. I think it would appeal to the local market, so it'll find a screen here, and so maybe Jim and I'll see it, because this is my kind of thing. I think it's Jim and I for Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies. I think it's our podcast kind of thing. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I saw it on your list. I looked into it, DMG, and I'm like, oh, I want that movie.
Well,
so there you go. Thanks for putting that one. Thank you, DMG, for putting it on my radar.
Yes. Well, you're welcome. And thank you. Look, and this is one of those films, too, that it looks like the kind that it didn't cost anything to make. So any money that it does make, a la Emily the Criminal, didn't cost anything to make. It's going to not be a very high standard to make a lot of money on this film. So that also is something that that I'm rooting for. I love good storytelling.
I don't care if it makes money or not. I care if I'm going to enjoy it and whether or not I'm right about its audience.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I do care whether it does make money, because I do want films that I like to be commercially successful so that I get more films like those in the future. I do think that when you have show business, the business side does come into it a little bit. So when you have a success like Emily the Criminal actually doing well in theaters and making money, I do think that's good for us as consumers to say, oh, let's have more indie films by Aubrey Plaza at Greenwood. So
you and I are going to have a chat about that specifically.
Oh,
because I think that would be worth having a really good conversation just about how those are connected or maybe not connected. But I totally see what you're saying. I pick it up what you're putting down for my friend.
Perfect. So I'm really looking forward to it. Planning to watch in theaters. It sounds like you're eager to watch it, but you don't think it's going to show up in theaters.
I'm keen. Again, I'm kind of pissed it wasn't on my list.
Yeah.
He's a runt. His chances aren't super good.
He's got to leave this island by fall.
It is more dangerous for him than anyone else.
You should not feel anything at all.
No! The Wild Robot. This one, I don't have any animated movies on my list for this fall, and I think after rewatching the trailer for this, I think I overlooked it a little bit. This is from DreamWorks. It stars Lupita Nyong'o as a robot. It stars Pedro Pascal.
Mark Hamill is in it.
Yeah.
It's like a voice in it. Ving Rhames, Bill Nighy.
And it looks like something that we would see from, not so much from DreamWorks, but Pixar. Pixar's the one that usually is heavy on the feels. So the fact that we're getting a DreamWorks film that's heavy on the feels, I think this looks interesting. Tell me about the Wild Robot.
Okay. The gag is that this robot, the robot, there's the big crash, a whole bunch of robots get destroyed, lost, whatever, because the robot transfer rocket jet thing crashes. One of them survives on this, what seems to be like maybe not a deserted island, but certainly no human habitation, but a lot of wildlife. And the robot gets, engages with the wildlife, learns to speak to the wildlife, like a weird sort of Doolittle character. And a little chickadee, a little duckling imprints on it, and the robot ends up raising the little duckling. There seems to be some peril, some urgency about getting this duckling that was a runt and may not survive, getting it to fly, and all this other life shit. And I am all for it. I got misty in the trailer, and I think it's going to be a hit. Definite above average. I'm not 100% sure I'll see it in the theater because it is such a family-oriented flick. Unless I can convince Jim to go, I'd look like a weirdo being alone in what's aimed for family, the children of all ages. But that doesn't mean that if I don't see it in the theater, I'll definitely see it as soon as it's available on streaming. Because I think that thing's going to be a hit.
Yeah,
I mean, the director, it's Chris Sanders. I don't know. He may have bit of an indie darling himself. I don't know if you've heard of How to Train Your Dragon or any of those bits of indie nonsense. They were up and then they were gone.
Yeah, and
yeah. No, this
Here to
guy's
train,
like
How to Train Your
legit.
Dragon. The Croods also big. Lilo and Stitch, Disney. So he does.
I know you've never heard of any of these films, but you'll have to trust me, folks.
Well, I've got the screen capture of his IMDb right here. So, I do find it.
So there you go. That's why it's on there. It's staying on there. I am looking forward to that coming out.
It's one that kind of slipped past me a little bit the first time I saw it because the story doesn't look too complicated. It looks like a pretty basic, straight-ahead story. Nothing wrong with that. But in amongst all the other...
nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, and what I missed the first time was the quality of the animation, because the animation looks... From DreamWorks... DreamWorks usually does decent animation, but it's usually not anywhere near Pixar quality. So I missed the quality the first time through, and the basicness of the story, I think, kind of washed over me a little bit. It didn't really stick. And then, after you put it on your list, I rewatched it, and thought, you know what? That actually does look better than the first time through of watching the trailer. I think there is a little bit of WALL-E here, obviously, with the robot, and I love a good emotional tugs at the heartstrings kind of thing.
What's that, Big Six? Super Big Six, whatever the hell. There's another one.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't
boy.
have to be, as long as the tone is right, as long as the acting is right. And as you said, if Mark Hamill's in it, Lupita Nyong'o's in it, if they have Oscar-nominated type actors doing the voices, then at least we know that the script was good enough to get all of their attention. So, I don't think I'm going to plan to watch this in theaters, but I do definitely want to watch this when it comes to.
Most people come to movies to escape their lives. Movies make life make sense.
And all I want to do is watch movies with you.
Is that so?
What do you want to do?
Have sex and get pregnant.
It's a little surprising that it's not higher on the list. This is Kevin Smith's latest film. This is a coming-of-age film. It is not really in the View Askew universe with, like, Jay and Silent Bob and all of them.
No.
It looks more like, in the same way that Steven Spielberg found a young Steven Spielberg type for The Fabelmans, this looks like Kevin Smith found a young Kevin Smith type for the 4:30 movie. And this is basically just him as a teenager in the 80s, going to the movies with his friends and trying to get
right
the girl.
After school.
Yeah. And having the summer fling and going to the movies and having that summer fling with a girl that he really likes. It's that simple. It's not complicated. Yeah, coming of age film, which is
a small group of high school film fans.
Yeah, and it is interesting too, because Kevin Smith, obviously this is right in Kevin Smith's wheelhouse. But what is interesting is the main cast is made up of people that I've never heard of before, with supporting actors that I have heard of before, like Rosario Dawson, like Kate Micucci, like Justin Long, showing up in Kevin Smith films.
From his, exactly. People
and
that he's worked with before.
And even Kevin Smith's daughter, Harley Quinn Smith, showing up in the movie, within the movie, not to get too meta, but yeah, Austin Zager, Sienna Agudong. I'm a Kevin Smith fan. I saw Clerks 1 in theaters when it first came out when I was in high school. So I am of that age that I'm. Yeah, so
this movie was made for you.
Yeah, because Kevin Smith is like 5-6 years older than I am. So if as we do YouTube, we always say, "What's your target audience?" It's usually you 5 years ago. So if that's the case, I am definitely the Kevin Smith target of what he was 5 years ago, have been for the last 30 years. So yeah, I'm a Kevin Smith super fan. If you're a Kevin Smith film fan, my guess is you'll probably want to watch this in theaters too. I've seen all except, I think, 2 or 3 Kevin Smith movies in theaters, so I'm not going to try and break that streak with this one. I like the looks of it. It looks pretty basic. It doesn't look like it's trying to reinvent the wheel. Hopefully this is Kevin Smith being Kevin Smith.
And you'll notice my old ass highlighted because this is one of the ones I was jealous about. The 4:30 movie gets a different kind of highlight. Bring that back to me. It's got a cool premise. I feel like there's a nice wide thing because this really kind of hooks into me as well. I think any real film fan, whether you're a critic, a filmmaker, a YouTuber, whatever, if you're really big into just going to movies, seeing movies, this thing was like, this should kind of hook into you. But I will push back on one level, DMG.
Okay.
The way Smith now makes his movies, he makes them at a low budget, and so the nobodies and friends, and then he four-walls it. This isn't even getting it's not really getting a limited release. It's going to go on tour, and he'll come with it. And if there's a friend around who will also join him on stage, that's the way. That is not even a limited release. That's not a release.
Roadshow style.
And you guys, this is a movie I'm looking forward to when it ends up on some streamer, because I am never going to see it. Most people will never see this in a theater because he's only going to go to those major markets. You have a decent chance because, Las Vegas ain't that far from LA. Or you could either drive there when it's in LA or wait until it comes, because it'll probably come to Las Vegas. It ain't ever coming to Winnipeg.
Well, really,
he's not coming here, although he has been here. He's made movies here.
Nice.
He's familiar. But yeah, it's his model now, which I totally get, totally respect, but I limited myself to theatrical releases. Whereas then I found out, DMG, Christmas apparently is part of fall now. And
well, Canada it sure is.
Releases.
Darn it.
Well, the streamer, the this, the that. For sakes. So anyway, it would never be on my list, but I'm glad you put it on my radar, because it does. It sounds like a cool movie. And if it came to Winnipeg, ended up in our art house theater, totally Jim and I would be up for this. I like movies as in some ways a Canadian director's homage to their childhood working in a video store and that. And we went and saw it with the director there as she's four-walling her film, as she four-walled her film around Canada, and it was well worth the experience.
And like for example, part of the reason why I say the Roadshow version of it, when Clerks 3 came out a couple years ago, because everything now is digital, most of the time theaters now are just able to download the 4K copy of a lot of these films, which is how I was able to see it in the suburbs at just a Century Theaters, which is one of the main theaters here in Las Vegas. So, I hope that you're able to watch it in Winnipeg, just being able to download films like they are now, than not having to have actual
he's
physical
not
prints.
Doing that. That isn't what he does. Literally, I found the press release. We're going to tour it. It's like, there will be no, and you can, I suppose what I could do is try and put on a local screening. I'm not that interested in that. Again, I'll wait till it's on streaming.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, it ain't coming to my town. It ain't coming to the vast majority of people here. It's not coming.
Gotcha.
They're not going to see it in the theater. That both sucks, but it isn't a terrible thing either. You will get to see it. It'll come on streaming eventually, or video on demand.
And Blu-ray and DVD.
And he gets to make the movie he wants to make. Like
yes.
that, I remember seeing an interview with him, and that was the heart of it. He's like, I do it this way. It was on Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum podcast. Great interview with him. He went through why he does it the way he does it. He's like, listen, I'll never get to make a real movie. Not real. Let's put air quotes. I'll never get to make a big movie. but now I'm okay with that. I do it the way I do it, and that means I get to make the movie I want to make with the people I want to make it with. And this is how I do it now.
Well,
and it's like, great. Then he gets to make the movie he wants. We'll eventually get to see it. He's not making nothing about this movie says, oh, the only way you can enjoy it is in the theater. Everything says, I'll be able to enjoy that at home.
Well, you know, it is interesting too, because we are definitely into the second act of Kevin Smith's career. I've seen a few interviews with him where he talked about how he thought, around 2008, 2010, 2012, he thought he was done directing, and he thought he would just be a podcaster from then on out.
Yeah.
And then he did Red State, and that kind of reestablished his directing juices, if you will. And since then, we've gotten Clerks 3, we've gotten Jay and Silent Bob reboot, or I forget the exact title. But we've gone back to the View Askew universe. We've gotten more original productions from him, including Tusk, Red State, all films that I really like. And again, I am a huge Kevin Smith fan. And even when he does stuff like, oh god, what was the police one that he did with Tracy Morgan and Bruce Willis? Wasn't a great film, but at least it was good.
I can't remember what it was. I kind of remember it.
Yeah.
I can see the poster. What's the name? No.
Yeah, not the most memorable film, but Kevin Smith at his best is best when he's doing
movies. Close quote.
Yeah, and he's at his best when he's doing low budget indie films, just telling the story that he wants to tell. So Kevin Smith for me, definitely want to go see it. And when I did see Clerks 3 in theaters here in Vegas, it was roadshow style, so there was only like one showing per day at the suburban theater. And it was interesting because by limiting the amount of show times, Kevin Smith fans had to go and sit shoulder to shoulder during COVID era.
Vibe, energy.
Yeah. And I think that actually added to the experience of it. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Kevin Smith and the 4:30 movie.
The conductor's going to come through, taking tickets. We tell him we're going to the bathroom. We shouldn't have to pay for train tickets in Poland. This is our country.
It was our country. They kicked us out because they thought we were cheap.
Yes. This is one that was so close to getting onto my list, and it didn't quite get there. This is the second directorial effort by Jesse Eisenberg. Kieran Culkin is also in the film. Jesse Eisenberg, Kieran Culkin, going across Poland. Tell me about A Real Pain.
That's basically it. Somebody dies. They've got to do some stuff regarding the fact that a relative died. They have a terrible relationship. They're estranged. A real pain. You can imagine both of them feeling that way. But it has a number of things I like. I do like the cast. Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. The trailer looks like they have good. They've got some chemistry. It also has the premise I like. I love Europe. I have not been to Poland yet. It'll just make me want to see it more. But I do. I love Europe. I love that wandering around Europe, taking trains, all that kind of stuff. And one of the producers is Emma Stone, part of her shingle, her and her husband, her and her partner. So, of course, I am keen on this flick. And given the early buzz, got a lot of early buzz, this guy. This will be another one of those, maybe because it's a comedy, it won't get award show buzz, but it's still worthy of buzz. It was premiered at Sundance Film Festival, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, 84 Metacritic score, high early IMDb ratings of 7.5. And although over time that'll get averaged down, I think it's going to be an above average film. I know, I suspect I'll really enjoy it. It's got all the things I enjoy, but more so, I think, audiences. It'll be a hit with the audience it's aimed at. I'm looking forward to this. And while it's not a must-see in the theater, I'm going to try and see it in the theater.
And it's interesting, too. This is the second directorial feature film, I believe.
For Mr. Eisenberg.
Yeah, for Jesse Eisenberg. I did not.
It was a hit.
Yeah,
it's a solid film.
When you finish Saving the World, I have not seen that one yet, but when I every time I see the trailer for When You Finish Saving the World, I mean to put it on my list, and then it kind of, it gets lost in translation, I think, somewhere in there. But I definitely, that film looked really good, and it did well. It had a pretty good reception, did it not?
Yeah, no, very good reception. He is not a schmuck,
Yes. So so I'm excited for this film. It didn't quite make it on my list, and I can't tell you exactly what was missing about it.
Okay,
wait, it got off my list. Huh?
It did get a nomination. There was an award at Cannes, no less. I don't think
nice.
the
Okay.
audience I think one of those ones where the critics and the audience perhaps had different opinions.
Well, anytime you have a good two-hander where it's just two guys having a relationship as they go on a road trip, I think that can be really hit and miss, and it's the kind of thing that doesn't really make it into wide release for good reason, because it's not Jurassic Park, it's not Star Wars, it's not it's not going to have a lot of stings blowing up. But if you're talking about good directing, good acting, good relationship drama, comedy, I think this is the kind of thing where
we're getting into it's being released on November 1st.
Yeah.
So we're getting into that prestige picture kind of season, right? I think it won't get a super wide release, but it'll get a decent release.
And I think this is similar to some of the other indie films. I think if it gets any sort of level of success, I think we're going to be hearing more about it, similar to Emily the Criminal. It looks pretty well done. It doesn't look too stylized. It does look like it's done with a very distinct eye towards character.
You know what it reminds me of? It's got a bit of the earlier Darjeeling Express or Darjeeling Limited, earlier Wes Anderson vibe and style. It is a conflict. It's about a conflict with family. There's traveling.
That's a good pull.
A train gag. Like I said, earlier Wes Anderson, not Asteroid City or the hyper stylized thing he's got going on now.
Aliens and that sort of thing. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's always interesting too to see actors who have a certain amount of success, like Jesse Eisenberg has in Oscar-nominated films or Oscar-winning films like Social Network, taking over the director's chair and just telling a story. This is one that I would definitely want to go watch in theaters, even though it's not all that visual. I do plan on watching this in theaters if it does come to Vegas. How about you?
You know what? Yeah. Is it a must-have? No, but it's a nice to have. And it's also very much a kind of movie I think Jim and I would enjoy. We both have brothers, so,
Nice.
It'll get us here in ways that other films won't necessarily, do. Damn it.
With Natani gone, they think they're going to walk all over us.
You really think we can win without him?
Are you guys with me?
I'm with your coach.
It looks like a lot of the sports movies we've seen before where it's a sports movie, but it's not a sports movie. This is Resball. It looks a little bit like a lot of different stuff. Mostly, it looks like Hoosiers, but on an Indian reservation. This is Jessica Matten as the coach.
And every other.
Yeah.
Save my comments.
Hoosiers on ice. Hoosiers on, yeah. So, it is interesting because Sidney Freeland, the director, has also directed some episodes of
Reservation Dogs?
Yeah, Reservation Dogs.
Reservation Dogs, yeah.
So I like the authentic look that we're getting at Native American culture, actually Native Canadian culture, because as I was doing the research, Jessica Matten is actually Canadian.
Yeah, you're about to step into something, my friend.
Oh, okay.
It's that doesn't mean that, let's say, First Nations in Southwest United States are not the same as First Nations in, let's say, Manitoba, which is Cree and Oji-Cree, versus Navajo and Apache. I'm pointing out a trap. Don't step into the trap.
It's not all the same. They are different cultures. Yeah, I totally get that. It is good to see some.
And really will have, if it's genuine, then great. Like anything that really is genuine of the space can still ring true to everyone outside that space because it's true to its space and its time and its community, right? It's when they're all trying to oh no, we want everyone to appreciate this, so it gets mushed.
Well, and look,
like Chat GPT.
This is straight to Netflix. It is a streaming show or a streaming film.
Yep.
It is interesting though because I think I get a little cynical when it comes to sports movies not being.
This is another one of my blue highlight ones.
So it does look pretty well.
I'm interrupting.
It does look pretty well put together. It does look like the type of film that does go straight to streaming. Yes. It does look, a little derivative of sports films, but I do like the representation. I do like that this is based off, theoretically, a real story. And I love,
They're all based on a true story.
Yeah, based on a real...
All of them are. No matter how fantastical. There is a kernel of, hey, some kids played sports in that town.
Yeah, someone played a game somewhere and someone won, yes. But it does look well put together. Cinematography of shooting on location in the Southwest, in the American Southwest with a Canadian native as the coach.
Fine,
representation, it's not perfect representation, but still, it does look well put together and it does look like a lot of fun. So that is my number 5 film. What are your thoughts, Rob?
I have thoughts. Notwithstanding the fact that it's a streamer, so I did not pick any streamers on my list. I stuck to theatrical releases. Here's exactly, I will read you what I wrote. Don't really care about these low-grade, quote, marginalized youths overcome their circumstances and pull a community together through bracket, insert sport here, close bracket, close quote. And I go on, and I suspect the audience will agree, in parentheses, there's a reason why it's only on Netflix. It's not even getting one of those, here, we'll give you a limited release for a couple of weeks in major markets, and then we'll, it's not a prestige thing. It's going to be another generic sport. Again, like I say, marginalized youth overcome circumstances, pull community together. And what really bothers me, let's say politically, is all these things. They got a kernel of truth, but they never do. Some of the kids on that team have some success later. Great. But there is never no real substantive knock-on effects because the problems, the reason they're marginalized, the reason the community is struggling is always massive systemic problems that no high school football game, no high school basketball game, no hockey game is going to fix. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I will not be watching this movie.
But you feel good at the end of it.
Yeah, I no longer do actually. Partly it's just I'm not saying I still have feel goods about Rudy. This is a great sport movie, even though I'm, ideologically not a fan of some of this stuff. I just don't think it'll be that good. I think it'll be a mediocrity like so many of them are now. A whole bunch of, we've seen it before. An outsider. There'll be the kid we got to get through to that kid. Even though he could be a star. But who knows? But if I am proven wrong, if it's average or even better, there'll be no one happier. Because that means a good film was made.
There's a reason why it's
that's just a good thing,
And there's a reason why it's number 5 on my list, and you cynical man, you.
DMG, you don't have me on because I like everything.
No, this is true too. It makes it a lot more interesting.
All right, I haven't had that loudmouth, hothead communist on in a while. I guess
You're choosing a lot of war movies with this list too, so it is interesting.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. But look, a feel good film will only make you feel as good as the feel good is of the feels, and to me, it looks at least from the trailer, like it was done right. Hopefully, I'm right. Hopefully, it's not just a fine film, but if you can get some no-name actors to tell a good story, where it's well cast, where you can suspend your disbelief and suspend cynicism. And that goes for me, too. I hope this is a good film. But, yeah, there is a reason why it's on streaming and not in theaters. So,
when does an empire die? There comes a time when its people no longer believe in it.
We are taking our city back.
we talk a lot. We talk a lot about putting your money where your mouth is. Francis Ford Coppola spent $120 million. He's in his 80s, so you can't take it with you. Why not? Megalopolis. Tell me about this Adam Driver CGI.
Make a lot of bucks.
Yeah, $120 million with some problematic things going on in the background, but we can talk about that later. Tell me about Megalopolis and what this film is.
It's one of those ones where I'm a little, it probably would have been higher up on my list. Kind of a sci-fi thing, bordering on fantasy, future Rome-esque world. A city has been destroyed through some conflict, really broad adaptation of a Republic of Rome, Roman conflict kind of thing. And so there's this architect, he wants to rebuild the city in a certain way, intrigue and whatnot. The reason it's on my list, even though in my notes it says, yikes, I love a big swing. And this looks like a big swing. A big swing from one of still living, truly great directors. I love a big swing. I want to see this swing. So just talking about the Film Fest buzz, premiered at Cannes because it's Coppola. Its Rotten Tomatoes score is only 6.3 or 53. Never mind, it's only 53%. Its Metacritic score is only 59. Does not bode well. And its early IMDb rating is only 6.8 with 1,300 early votes. So I suspect this will be one of those films that is very polarizing. I suspect a lot of the commentary, there'll be hyper fans like there are for Dune. It's genius and you just don't get it. It's like, no, it's a lot of sin and I'm sort of bored and feeling anticlimactic by the end of number 2. But okay, buddy, whatever. I think there's going to be stuff like that, but I still think it's going to fit in average. The lowest it'll go on IMDb, I think, is 6.2. And yeah, some of it is the drama. Like, I mean, this is the first time I heard hints of it, but I try and keep out of the newsy, gossipy BS about the making of a movie until I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I should look this up now. And it's like, wow, it's got a whole section on the Wikipedia page about crazy, creepy crap. And so that's going to roll around in my head. I want to see this in the theater, but I'm like, I'm a little worried. And yeah, I think audiences will be split, but it'll still come out to an average, a lower end of average, but an average film, which is in a way unfortunate. This may be the last film he ever makes. Certainly the last really big film. I mean, I don't know, how long could he keep collecting Godfather money?
We just saw Kevin Costner spend 30 some odd million dollars on a Western, and that didn't go well, right? And 120,
bizarrely enough,
$120 million on this CGI Adam Driver. You know, there's nothing about this film that really makes me excited to go watch it. I mean, the backstory of reading on the Wikipedia page of based off the old Roman tale, it takes place in New Rome instead of New York.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is interesting.
Get the gag.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder though whether this whole thing is all inside of Adam Driver's head, because we do see a released clip where he's at the Chrysler Building. You see kind of more reality-based stuff towards the beginning, and then it goes more into the fable territory. Yeah. I love the cast. Obviously, I love Francis Ford Coppola, but at a certain point...
You don't have to love him.
Well, no, man, I love Francis. I love his history of filmmaking. I love what his family has done for film. I love his contributions. There's nothing about this that makes me say I really want to go see this film. And then when we talk about the things behind the scenes that have been going on, it
makes it harder.
Yeah, it's more than a little problematic. I've had
well said.
I have the screen caps here. I want to go through these a little bit here. This is from Variety. Francis Ford Coppola didn't want Megalopolis to be some woke Hollywood production. Says the cast includes people who were canceled.
Said maybe you're the one who should have been canceled, you creepy bastard.
Yeah. And I'm all for second chances, but it just kind of seems like, can we take the remote away from Grandpa a little bit? I just, and I hate saying that because he's someone who's, there's a reason why he had $120 million to spend on this film, because he's earned $120 million.
And then some, because this is a guy who's won and lost, made and lost fortunes, all on big swings.
He was making Oscar-winning movies before I was even born.
Yeah.
Next one is Lionsgate pulls Megalopolis trailer offline due to made-up critics' quotes and actually issues an apology. How often do we ever see movie trailers pulled offline? And it doesn't. Sadly, it doesn't stop there. Francis Ford Coppola is shown kissing Megalopolis extras in unearthed videos.
Well, yeah, it's like, Jesus, man.
And see, I don't care that he's 83 and the extras
you got all that money,
much
hire
younger.
A sex worker.
I do care that he is the director of a film taking advantage of extras who can't really say no. Sadly, it doesn't stop there. Yeah,
to get them in the mood? What are you talking about, you creepy old man?
And finally, from People magazine, why Francis Ford Coppola risked $120 million of his wealth funding a movie, quote, money doesn't matter. I just...
Well, and this is that why it's still on my list, because it's going to be this crazy-ass big swing, and I think I still kind of want to see it.
But if it's a train wreck, do you really want to see it?
What if it is a connect? What if it's something where I go, God damn. Actually, you know what? Even if it's a fail, if it's one of those, I'm going to put out one of the films that bugs the living out of me is No Hard Feelings. And it's because it is what it does in the third act kind of screws it. And even then, it's still a pretty good movie. But you kind of, for me, it's like, wow, what the man? But it's still a movie I remember. And even a fail, it fouled off in the third act. Couldn't advance the runner, couldn't bring it home. But there's something so good there. And its mistakes are so, in my mind, clear. It is worthy of examination. And a big swing like Megalopolis may be worthy of examination even in the fail. Harvey Weinstein was found out because his power was waning. And so, it caught up with him. How much of these stories are coming out because a lot of the people are going, what can he do to my career? There was another film on here that didn't make the cut, even though I was like kind of, it might be interesting. But I have a hard time watching movies with Mel Gibson in them now.
Speaking of problematic.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things. I may not end up seeing it, but I decided to keep it on the list anyway. I can only steal so many from yours. And I
do have one final question, Megalopolis. Do you think that a lot of this grandpa level stuff reflects a reduced capacity of a formerly great director?
Yeah, I don't know. You got to see the work. Some of these stories won't come out until after he's gone. You know what? Maybe we'll find out. It's like, it was more than him just creeping on the young girls. It was him not remembering what was talked about the day before. It was, we hear those stories, and we may not be hearing those stories right now, we may go, oh, you know what? I get why people don't like it, but boy, I get it, and it's amazing.
Look, aging is not kind, and it's something that happens to everybody, and it's sad because that generation of directors
all the time.
Yeah, what's sad is that the generation of directors that came up together, Brian De Palma, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg,
part of the new Hollywood,
Francis Ford Coppola, they're the ones that saved Hollywood when the studio system was collapsing in on itself. It was those young directors that kind of came up at the same time, came out of film school, and reinvented film. And to see Francis Ford Coppola spending money hand over fist on, and, losing control of his set, I kind of am glad that George Lucas is semi-retired now.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would say that, but...
It's not his fault that Disney turned it into crap.
Well, that's true, too. But, hopefully I'm wrong.
People retire. People have to retire.
Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Megalopolis is brilliant. Hopefully it is one that I will be told you were wrong, and you were wrong to say that you weren't excited for this film. I hope that I'm wrong. I don't
know. Just because it cost a lot of money, it wasn't my money.
Yeah.
Do I really need to see this thing? But I kind of want to see it.
At least Kevin
Maybe
Costner.
It'll be a train wreck, but I don't know.
At least Kevin Costner shot on location. That's like this.
Katie started drinking a few hours ago.
How do you like the food?
Thank you for the dinner.
Watch her not even wash her dishes.
My number 4 is a three-hander. We talked a little bit about two-handers and two people. This is going to be a three-hander about three sisters dealing with the impending potential death of their father. This is Carrie Coon, this is Elizabeth Olsen, and this is Natasha Lyonne as three sisters in His Three Daughters. We've seen Elizabeth Olsen and Carrie Coon on the big screen in Avengers Endgame, kind of fighting each other. Now we're seeing them in a small little indie film, having nothing to do except their characters and fighting and having to deal with the pending death of a father figure. I don't even know if we're going to see the father figure on camera, but this is clearly about three sisters who don't have a lot to do with each other. I love watching good character pieces. I love watching good sibling pieces. We were talking about Jesse Eisenberg a little bit earlier and Kieran Culkin. I think we're getting that from the female perspective, and three characters versus two. I love sibling stories like this, so I'm really excited for His Three Daughters.
This one was kind of always sort of on my radar because it's a Netflix flick. I did not know it was getting a limited release. It was only when I saw it on your list that I looked a little deeper. I'm like, well, goddamn, why wasn't it even on my, hey, I'm kind of interested in these Netflix sort of honorable mentions? And once I did, I was like, oh, I wish it was on my list. I really do. This is literally what I said. This one should have been on my list. I do think audiences will give it an average rating, although high, like a high average, but not above average. It'll cap out at 7.2, if it gets even that high. But yeah, it's got like the thing, all the things you talk about are what I'm interested in as well. And these players, to see these players interact, seeing some of their best work right now, and to see them all together in this flick, in this kind of flick, I think it'll be great. It'll be a great experience. Whether you see it in the theater, I won't. I'll see it on, I'll wait a couple of weeks, and it'll be on Netflix. I wish it was on my list. Again, I could have, all of a sudden, bye-bye, Venom. Definitely bye-bye, Never Let Go. I'd probably keep my dead friend Zoe at the bottom, but Never Let Go and Venom the Last Dance, out of here with your two, what was it? Well, this one, His Three Daughters, and what was the other one? My Old Ass. I was like, they should have been on my list, and I would have ditched those two.
With the 6 extra weeks that I was pulling from that I didn't tell you about.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But those are my feelings on your pick, His Three Daughters. Wish it was on my list. Looking forward to seeing it in September.
Kind of interesting, too. The director is Azazel Jacobs, and I have part of his IMDb up here on the screen, and, it's interesting. Episodic television, films, shorts that I've never heard of before. And then this film that goes through the film festival circuit.
100% on Rotten Tomatoes. 80 on Metacritic. Premiered 2023 at TIFF. Not a nothing burger.
To get 100% on Rotten Tomatoes on anything is next to impossible.
I mean, it's not like
it's going to come
still
down.
Hasn't got the hundreds of reviews. Yeah. That's why I'm saying it's going to be on the high average. That number's going to get brought down,
chipped down a little bit. Yeah, of course. But yeah, and look, it's one of those that it's not a huge budget, but it's just the relationship drama going on there. There's just something about watching good actors practicing their craft, chewing through some emotional kind of baggage that is well conceived and well written, and characters with different points of view, with different takes on things. It just looks like that kind of thing that could be a stage play on Broadway. They chose to make an independent film out of it, so I'm excited for this film. And I don't think I'll watch it in theaters. If it does come out in theaters, I will consider it, but this is definitely one that I'm going to catch on streaming. So, yeah, I'm eager for it.
We should run the dress rehearsal and claw back a win next Saturday.
You haven't locked the script.
We can't, Dick. It's a live show.
Your crew is in open rebellion.
90 minutes of live television by a group of 20-year-olds.
Saturday night. SATURDAY. Night.
Bay City Rollers. Woo!
Yes. You know what's fascinating, too, is the very first episode of Saturday Night Live aired when I was roughly 2 weeks old. So as a huge comedy fan, I've always had a huge attachment to Saturday Night Live. So the fact that we're getting a behind-the-scenes look, dramatization of the very first episode production of Saturday Night Live.
It's a drama. It'll have laughs, but it's a drama.
And directed by Jason Reitman, who is a brilliant director. I'm a huge fan of all of his work, including Thank You for Smoking, which was a drama with comedic moments. We're doing year number 4, so tell me about Saturday Night.
It's just as you described. It's basically the telling of the first Saturday Night Live and the pressure a young Lorne Michaels is under to make this work. And all the maniacs he has working for them, the writers, from the writers to the stars. Of course, John Belushi before he, for all intents and purposes, killed himself. A young, dickish Chevy Chase. A Gilda Radner, all these people who really people knew about if you're in the comedy scene, but no one had really heard of. And then all of a sudden, boom, what were they called? The not ready for primetime players. And I am excited about that story being told. Even though I suspect a lot of it will be apocryphal, you'll hear me run down a couple of your choices later, and it'll sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. Most of these people are still alive, so how accurate is it going to be? It's always a tough one, right? Lorne Michaels, I think, is going to end up looking really good out of this. That said, it is an important television show that still has one of those few TV shows. It still has some hold on our collective cultural mind, let's say in the West and definitely in North America. I'm looking forward to it. I will say I do kind of wish it was about SCTV.
If this is successful, I think that probably will be coming up next too.
You know what? CBC will make it, and they'll f it up. They'll make some mediocre, great Canada heritage moment. I'm looking forward to it. The trailer looks pretty solid. And I think it's also going to be a hit with its boomer audience. I'm Gen X. I was a little kid when it came out. Again, I'm referring to SCTV. That was a little more my time, although we still would talk about Saturday Night Live skits when I was a kid. Jim, my co-host on Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, we swap old skits. He still watches Saturday Night Live religiously. I'm Mr. Bill. Oh no, it's Mr. Bill. Oh no. God, I love that bit. I'm losing my voice. It's getting late in the evening, but yeah, I can't wait. Is it a must have? Probably not, but sure would be a nice to have. I'd like to see it in the theater, especially as it's about the construction of a live show. So I want to be in a big dark room, seeing it on the big screen. My question for you is, I have it at number 4. Why do you have it at number 6? Why do you feel it didn't make it higher on your list?
I like the idea of it, but my fear is that when you have a story this big with so many comedic legends as characters, that we're going to be seeing people come in and out going, oh, there's the guy playing Belushi. Oh, there's the guy playing Chevy Chase. Oh, there's the faceless guy playing Dick Ebersol. There's so that my fear is that the central narrative is going to get lost with so many characters with, we've seen, if you're a huge comedy fan, you've seen all of these characters talking about things that happened during that first episode before. So how much of this is going to be
I think that's
truthful?
how it's going to work, is by using someone who's truly behind the scenes. Like a lot of these movies with a lot of players, you got to pick someone who will sort of be your buddy, and using Lorne Michaels, somebody no one knows, although we've heard a million bits about him. He has
Dr.
been
Evil.
part of our pop culture life, but we don't really know who he is. He is the perfect audience avatar and the perfect way to go, oh my God, these people were crazy, as all their behavior comes out. As we see them through a guy who's just trying to put the show on. Because in a lot of ways, it is like a 30s musical. Will the show go on?
Well,
because they even got a ticking clock. 10:30, show goes live. It's all about the drama before the show goes live. And I'm like, that's why I think actually what you're talking about, I can see why you're worried about it, but I think actually that's going to be its strength.
Because bits and pieces of this story we've seen before. We've seen in Man on the Moon, we saw the Andy Kaufman getting up and doing, "Here we come to save the day." So I'm wondering if this kind of relatively low budget looking film, I wonder if it's,
I think it's going to be a hit.
I hope I'm wrong, and I'm optimistic about it, but there's something that feels like is missing, and I'm not quite sure what that is.
It's a trailer, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but
something's missing here. Watch the movie, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to watch it. But
2024, already out of Telluride, like this weekend, it's got a 75 Metacritic score.
And I'm sure it'll probably do well critics-wise. I
think it's going to be a hit.
I hope you're right, and I hope that my hesitation is
hit with its boomer
misplaced.
fans. I think you're making stuff up in your head. I think you need to let it go.
Frozen style.
Let the movie happen.
Yes.
Yes. Frozen style. Elsa style. Let that
Elsa
go.
style.
Elsa style.
Which then moves on to
Elsa style.
Yes.
Right here is where we want to be.
This was our home.
The accurately named, but I don't think it's really all that inspirational here. The Forrest Gump reunion with Robert Zemeckis, Tom Hanks, and Jenny.
Right.
It's
Ms.
a cool
Robin
looking
Wright.
idea. Tell me about here.
Okay, big slice of life film telling the story of a family and a location over the years. Zemeckis has some misses and he has some hits, right? Again, always big swings. Gotta love a director who's willing to take a big swing every now and then. It doesn't always have to be that. And I think both our lists got a lot of just a nice character piece, no big swings. Let the thing breathe. Let us get to know people. And I think Zemeckis at his best can do both. A big kind of creative, how are we going to tell the story swing while still getting to know people? The gag is it's all from one camera angle of a place, bloop, bloop out of the primordial ooze. We see, eggs hatching, cave woman with a baby. And of course, then it, picks up the pace a bit. And we start seeing the story of a family, a young Tom Hanks, because of course they're screwing around with age, a young Robin Wright, the boyfriend, girlfriend, the father, who I think is played by Paul Bettany. Yeah. And, then they become, the ones who, a family, and then they have their own family. And my note is, while he hasn't been hitting it out of the park lately, when he gets the feels right, when it isn't just, hey, look at this thing we can do. I think Polar Express is a perfect example of, I can do it. Look what I did. As opposed to, well, yeah, but what about the emotional journey? I think this movie will be average. I'm still looking forward to it. Again, it's a big swing. It may be one of the last times we can buy a young Paul Hanks and an older Paul Hanks. Never mind Robin Wright. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, there you go. I think it's going to be average in audiences' minds. Like, maybe on the high side of average, could be on the low side of average. He has not been hitting it out of the park lately, but I'm still looking forward to it. Again, nothing better than a director taking a swing, and I want to see how that single point of view works out. How do you do an entire movie where the camera doesn't move? That's a creative limitation that just, it's like, I want to see that. It could be at the end, DMG, we could be talking 2 months from now and go, woof, boy, that did not work out.
Yeah, that's
wow,
my fear.
What a swing.
Yeah, and look, I love Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. I love Forrest Gump. It's one of my favorite all-time films. It came out my senior year in high school. And I like the idea of this concept. But when someone tells you about an idea for, a business, a product, whatever, yeah, and it sounds good on paper, it sounds good in the pitch phase, and then you kind of see the pilot, you see the test. This is one that when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea.
That's the kind of limitation some indie first-time director goes, well, I really can't afford to move it around. How do I make this look good? And here's a guy who can command the services of a Tom Hanks and a Robin Wright going, we're just going to have one camera location.
Yeah, and one camera. Yeah, exactly. No movement. It's sort of like GoPro without the GoPro. It's the camera that doesn't move. It moves through time, but it doesn't. Well, it's that stationary, non-zooming in, non-focusing, I don't know. There's something about this that looks like it's missing to me. And yes, part of it is the CGI.
More missing.
Yeah, and and I'll be honest, part of this is the uncanny valley of the CGI de-aging thing. I don't know why Brad Pitt can look great in Curious Case of Benjamin Button 15 years ago, and this looks worse. The technology in this looks worse than that.
I got to push back on that one. You are not seeing the film. You're seeing something on YouTube made to get the trailer out. Wait until it happens. It may be a disaster, but wait until it actually comes out. Especially you, Brian, because I think this is a hole in your swing. I don't like CGI. I just reject that categorically. Every movie has CGI. A lot of them, even the ones who brag about, it's all practical, ton of CGI, and Christopher Nolan, he accepted an award from a bunch of VFX guys because he's got a ton of VFX, and he says, listen, I know my reputation is such that, I'm really impressed you were willing to give me an award anyway, because so much of why my reputation looks so good on the practical side is because you make me look so good.
That's true. There is
CGI is everywhere, and I think that you've been trapped by this idea, and I think it holds you back from enjoying something that may actually be really great. So I'm going to ask you to set aside that concern for this one flick once. Just set it aside. Put the anti-CGI just to the side for a bit. Let the movie happen to you. And then you can pick it up and bitch about CGI in another flick.
So you're not getting any of Henry Cavill's CGI upper lip on Tom Hanks's face in this trailer.
No, I didn't really, but mind you, again, why I think you should let it go. You look for it, and I don't. Henry Cavill, the CGI like what they did in Madam Web, where it's like, okay, they dropped in a pickup and weren't willing to do a reshoot for whatever. It's obvious. And again, another one where I'm like, what is everyone worried about AI? It couldn't do that. And they had they had more money than God, and they couldn't make that look good. So yeah, but I'm not looking for it. Whereas I think when you look for it, you see it, and you don't. Then all of a sudden you're trapped in looking for these things when you should just let the movie happen to you. I do this as well. The last video I put out was where I was basically saying, I took another look at that past lives, and it's a lot better than I was willing to admit the first time around. Because mine is more a thematic things I look for and bitch and moan about. Let the movie happen to me, and then the analysis can come afterwards. And I think this is an area where I put to you, sir, if you let that go for a bit and just let the movie happen, and then afterwards you can say, what the fuck? Or, oh, that wasn't that bad.
The suspension of disbelief a little bit.
Just let the movie happen.
Okay, I'll consider it. That is a good point to bring up. And it's very fair.
The biggest problem is going to be the Irishmen. They may have looked younger, but they're still moving like really old men. And that was one of those weird cognitive dissonances, the uncanny valley you speak of so well. That was one of the problems. Whereas here it looks like, nope, everyone's gonna, it's gonna cut right. We're not gonna expect he's gonna move in a way that seems reasonable for someone of that age. They're not going to put him in a position where it's like, well, it looks like an old man getting up.
Well, in the same way that, Samuel L. Jackson doing the de-aging in Captain Marvel, a lot's been made about him kind of moving slowly, much slower than a 39-year-old Samuel L. Jackson. And that's
where I think it's like, it ain't the CGI, it's the person under it, where it's like, oh, what are you doing? Sakes.
Well, speaking of CGI,
really? Anyway, sorry.
It'd be cool is if we told my story with Lego pieces. I loved music. I would see beautiful hues of light cascading. I just thought that's what all black kids did, stared into the speaker like.
Piece by piece?
Piece by piece. I want to hear about this.
This is Pharrell
I have
Williams
on this one, but I want to hear your take on this.
So Pharrell is, he's an R&B star, and he's also done a lot of musical scores on films, including the Despicable Me franchise. This is a biopic of Pharrell Williams, told through Lego animation. Yes,
by Pharrell Williams.
Yeah, by Pharrell. By Gwen Stefani, by Snoop Dogg, real life people.
Well, it's got a huge list. Timbaland, Justin Timberlake, Busta Rhymes, Jay-Z, Kendrick Lamar.
The list goes on and on and on and on. It's pretty amazing. I love a good biopic. I love Legos. I love the Lego movie. And yeah, it's all CGI, but it's so well put together and it's so well done. And the visuals that they have, and I have a little bit of a background clip from the trailer here. I love the way that they've realized Legos and visuals and music, and I believe the word is synestheology, or not theology, but
synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Like that kind of music as colors.
Where people actually see, have a visual, an actual physical representation of seeing music as colors and shapes and everything. That is what they're selling as Pharrell Williams being really good. Part of the reason why he's so good at music. I love the idea of that. They even work into the trailer that Pharrell just wanted to see his life story told in Legos. You know, we talk about there's no original ideas in Hollywood anymore. Have you ever seen a biopic told in Legos? I sure as heck have never. So
I put it up on my screen there. Synesthesia is a phenomenon that causes sensory crossovers, such as tasting colors or feeling sounds. Some people describe it as having wires crossed in the brain because it activates two or more senses when there's only one, or there's only a reason for one sense to activate. And then, of course, the cool graphic there, hearing all the flowing colors.
There's just something about the fact that they don't even bother to explain the concept, but they show it. What do we always say about, good filmmaking? Tell, don't show? No, it's show, don't tell. So Pharrell's music has added so much to the Despicable Me franchise. I can't say that I'm an expert on his music in the R&B world, but if we're seeing, I can't say it because I've never seen a biopic told through Legos before. So that part of it alone, I love the idea of it, the people involved, the fact that we got all the original voices for their Lego representation. Legos flying around the world, that's effing brilliant. So yeah, so it's my number 3 film, piece by piece. What did you think when you saw the trailer?
And I got stronger words later on the subject, but personally, I think all musician biopics are BS. That said, Manville, the director, has made a ton of highly praised, highly touted music and creative type celebrity documentaries. It's this guy's thing. And so I think it's going to do really well, and I think it's going to look really cool. It's not my jam, and I still think it's like, you know what, I don't want to hear Farrell talk about his muse. I can't think of anything more boring. Show me an interview. Some of the clips, I bet you will get some cool music videos out of it, and I might enjoy that. But I think if this is your kind of thing, I suspect you'll love it. I suspect it's going to do well. It's going to have above average IMDb ratings, and that's not just because it's Farrell, although that's a big chunk of it. It's that this Manville guy knows how to do it, and this Lego idea, whoever came up with it, whether it be Farrell or maybe it was Manville, or they're just talking, kind of like in the trailer, what, you want to do what? Manville was the right guy. Farrell picked the right director to tell his story. Does that make any sense? Like I said, I'm not going to see it. I have zero interest in seeing this stuff. I think they're all bull.
You're saying, well, is this the type of film that I like? I can't say that it is. I can't say that it isn't. Because I haven't seen a film like this before. A biopic made out of Legos. So it's the idea of it, I think, more than anything that I'm liking. And maybe this is me just like saying,
Did you see the Batman Lego movie?
Yeah, but that wasn't a biopic.
Yeah. It's a story of Batman.
Because there's
emotions.
I like Lego movies. I like Star Wars Lego stuff. I like Batman Lego, all that kind of stuff. But an actual take on a real person's life, a biography picture.
It's a big swing.
Yeah, so I like
going back to gotta love a director who's willing to take a big swing.
Yeah, so I think a part of me is just excited for that alone. It looks pretty well realized on the visuals of it in terms of the visual style, and the fact that they made it look like stop motion, and they're not trying to make it like real smooth. They're trying to make it look stop motion. I think is fascinating too. So so all that is reason why it's number 3 on my list. Trailer's not out yet, as of a couple hours ago.
Nope.
Saoirse Ronan, Harris Dickinson in World War II, the Blitzkrieg on London. I don't know much else about this,
Britain.
but go.
What the English, especially Londoners, referred to as the Blitz, but it was really the Battle of Britain, the bombing of London and other major urban centers, prompted by a to Hitler raid on Berlin, where they said, screw it, we got to punish them. And all of a sudden, the whole strategy, which was working really well, destroy infrastructure, destroy the airports, the aerodromes, radar station, all this stuff. That's what the Germans were doing. They got switched onto that, which probably one of the reasons that Britain actually made it through that. Nazis be crazy. What this is, though, is a young boy buggers off, has a great adventure during the Blitz. You can imagine you're a young boy, mom's still alive, everything's fine, and this is cool, and it's big and it's loud, and there's, it's big and it's dramatic. Think Empire of the Sun, but even less from a young boy's perspective. He has this great adventure. Meanwhile, Saoirse Ronan is hunting for her child. She is not seeing it as a great adventure. In my notes, one of the reasons I'm looking forward to this, one of the reasons it scores so high, this will be another war movie that won't be pro-war. It's almost impossible when you're telling the story of of civilians and how they're affected. And it's a story that usually only gets some really over-the-top, patriotic, like Mrs. Miniver, because the director, Steve McQueen, he did all the small act stuff. It's like, yeah, this will not be a jingoistic, our best final hour. It's not going to be any of that. It is going to be a lot more grounded and real and realistic. And so, yeah, I'm laying most of my faith Steve McQueen's feet, but I think my faith will be rewarded. Not only do I think I'm going to enjoy. Let's put air quotes on enjoy. I think it's going to be really liked by its audience. It's going to score above average. I'll explain why my number one is my number one, but I could have swapped them easy.
And I think it's worth pointing out, too, Steve McQueen, director of 12 Years a Slave, which was Oscar nominated. It is sort of interesting because I have his director's filmography up here. It's a bit small. I probably should have...
No, it is 97 wins, because it's what it is he's got a lot of television. If you think of small acts, it presents as a series. It's really 5 feature films within a TV series, right? But his directing credits are significant, and even his short stuff, Grenfell, this guy talks about what affects, working class Londoners. He's won 1 Oscar.
And then obviously Saoirse Ronan, Oscar nominations, and pretty much every film she does is nominated for an Oscar in some way, shape, or form. So
it's her, yes, other supporting players, and Steve McQueen. Yeah, I am excited about that flick, and it's a great flick in Canada, and I think actually all Commonwealth countries, including England. It's Remembrance Day, and it's on November 11th. So this release date of November 1st is set up for that.
Yeah, and perfectly timed for here in the States as well, for Veterans Day on November 11th.
Saoirse Ronan and Blitz, okay, well, let's look at it. But as soon as I saw Steve McQueen, because I'm familiar with his other work, and absolutely. A fan of his other work. So I think that's what have I really talked about? Steve McQueen. I know it won't be jingoistic, and Steve McQueen is he is
talented filmmaker,
young and well in command of his craft.
Absolutely.
Come to me. He is coming to us.
Speaking of pretentious, Nosferstu.
Nosferatu?
Nosferstu. Nosferstu. We got Pennywise, we got, Bill Skarsgård, we got Nicholas Hoult, we got Beast. We got an all-star cast here telling the story of Dracula. Again, comes out Christmas Day.
Merry Christmas. Let's go see a movie about vampires.
Yeah. And, when I really think about it, it's not the kind of film that initially jumped off the screen at me. It doesn't even really necessarily interest me subject matter-wise. Robert Eggers has done good work before, but after I watched it and rewatched the trailer a couple of times, it kind of grows on me a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula, that kind of very gothic, that kind of take, which obviously this looks like it's taking a lot of influence from.
I was going to say, I was like, well, you may be disappointed then.
Yeah. But,
but no, continue, sorry.
But Willem Dafoe, anytime William Dafoe shows up, you know that you're at least getting
it's
something.
It's a predictor of quality for you.
Yeah. I mean, well, when does William Dafoe never not suck? Or never, yeah, when has he ever done anything bad? I mean, films, yes, a film here or there, yeah, it can be not great. But Willem Dafoe almost always brings it whenever he's in a film. And then it started to get me, it got me looking at everyone else involved with this. Bill Skarsgård. And yeah, of course, Bill Skarsgård's done some not great stuff. But we'll leave those step. Yeah, up and down the cast. It starts growing on me after a while. Seeing the visuals, seeing the cinematography. We've seen the story before. We've seen Dracula plenty of times. I don't know how much new we're going to get here. I don't know how much it needs to be new. But it just looks really well executed.
You know what? You got a director who's really good at doing weird
Yeah.
Like he did Lighthouse. That's some weird-ass
Yeah, and whenever you get a Christmas Day release, that's one of those dates that studios save for
a premium Oscar bait.
I think we can expect some really serious Oscar-bation.
He did the Vivitch, the Northman, which in the end,
another
I'm like,
great
wow,
flick.
this is a solid flick.
But I think this one, because it's Dracula, because I think there could be more Oscar talk based off this film than there could be off The Northman. Because The Northman was so stylized. There's something about this that kind of jumps off the screen, even though it is very dark, and it's not the kind of thing that really moves me as a film fan. And yet, there's something there.
And there it is, number 2.
Yeah, number 2
it's a hook
on my
in
list.
Your brain, I get it.
Yeah, so what did you think when you saw the trailer for this?
Not my jam, but I could see it doing well. I could see it being creepy AF. I think Eggers, again, you look at some of the other films he's made, it's like, oh, that guy really knows how to manipulate your mood without getting gross. Like he doesn't rely on a jump. This is not a man who relies on a jump scare. Jim and I saw Alien Romulus. We'll be doing a live stream on it next week. That and the whole Aliens franchise. But that's a pretty straightforward horror movie, young people trapped in a thing with a monster, attractive young people trapped in a house with a monster. Blake Snyder literally calls it Monster in the House. That's his. Yeah, Eggers is not that. He's all about manipulating mood and getting weird and getting you uncomfortable. And so I could see this doing well because he really knows how to do that. Nosferstu, the original Lubisch or whatever, it's a German expressionist, weird-ass horror thing. I could see him doing that. Like it really, what he's picked up from what he did with The Lighthouse, which also had some German expressionist kind of look and feel to it. I wrote Coppola's Dracula was a hit, and I think this will be going for that kind of audience because it's still a romance. Like I described its genre as horror and romance because you still have a girl and a boy and then the vampire who craves the young girl, At least it owns its creepiness. It's like, well, it is a horror. He's a vampire. But I think it's one of the reasons I think it'll do above average. The director, the people in it, the vibe, and we haven't seen that kind of horror film for a while, so it might be just the right time. I am predicting it will do above average. I get why people would see it, and I think they will get what they were looking for.
I was good at drinking, having sex, and taking pictures.
There's no women allowed in the press brief.
We don't send women to combat.
Why should the men get to decide?
To your number 1, this is Lee. This is another war film. Kate Winslet, Andy Samberg, model, partier, goes to become a war photographer, World War II.
Lee Miller was one of the first women combat photographers. Rather a remarkable story. She was a model. Ends up in England, starts taking pictures, especially pictures of the Blitz and London, how Londoners are managing through the Battle of Britain, and then bullies and cajoles and gets herself on and has this huge career as a combat photographer. Knows like just a long list of amazing famous people that she knew and hung out with, and just a fascinating person. Why wasn't this movie made already? That's one of the reasons I was excited about it as soon as I heard about it. Of course, I'm also a fan of Kate Winslet. I like the choices she makes. So I was always excited about seeing this, and I was like, when is it going to come out? It's already been, it already got...
September 27th is the release date.
2023, it was at TIFF. 69% Rotten Tomatoes, 59% Metacritic score, only 6.4 on the IMDb. And you look at the trailer, it definitely has a movie of the week vibe. You know, it's getting a theatrical release, but it was released on, it was made for television, for English television, for British television. And so it had that, I think it was on Sky, one of those, I don't know, goofy English broadcasters. And it looks it. I have been looking forward to it, and I'm fine with it being at number one, mostly because I was really looking forward to it. And now it's finally going to come out, and I'm going to finally get to see it. That said, yeah, it'll probably rise and fall on her performance and how well they're able to draw that out of her. It's probably going to it's going to stick with a solid average rating. That 6.4 probably won't change much. I don't think it'll go much lower. Might go a little higher, but it's going to be a solid, fine film. A perfectly mediocre film that I will nonetheless enjoy. And again, much like, yeah, it is the other war movie, another World War II movie, but it's also taking a different angle, telling someone else's story that doesn't involve a big battle or feats of heroism. Lee has the risk of being that as well. I don't think the Blitz will, but Lee's got a bit of that. It's got the potential for that. It'll be interesting, you know, when I finally get to see it, you know, be kind of a pro-war flick. Still a story worth telling, but Jesus Christ. Blitz, I don't think is going to be that. And I'm really looking forward to that.
You know, kind of interesting.
If I could go back and flip them around. Lee would be lower on my list. There's other films we've talked about tonight that should be higher than Lee, but such is life. I live with the choices I made 4 hours ago.
This is true. Speaking a little bit of the director, Ellen Kuras, I don't know if this is technically her feature film debut, but I have up on the screen her IMDb page. She is a prolific television.
She's got one other. Yeah, it's all television, but it makes sense. It looks like it was made for TV. They hired a TV director, B+ or A-, A-list TV director.
Knows how to come in on time and on budget and tell a good story economically.
This is one of the two features she has, but she's mostly a television director. That was her thing.
Are you planning to watch Lee in theaters? If it comes to theaters?
I doubt it will come to theaters in Winnipeg. If it does, I'm not even sure about that. Like it has such a made-for-TV look that I'm like, it might be perfectly like well-calibrated to home viewing.
My number one, A Complete Unknown, coming out Christmas Day. This is Timothy Chalamet, Elle Fanning.
Mr. Chalamet.
Yeah, and it's, you know, telling the story of Bob Dylan in a very fancy, schmancy cinematography, rose-colored glasses going back a ways. But, you know, who doesn't like a good Edward Norton jumping in?
Elle Fanning looks like a young sweetheart.
Yeah, it looks like, and yes, it looks like an Oscar bait type film. Yes, it's coming out Christmas Day. Yes, of course, they spent a lot of money on this film. You don't put Timothée Chalamet in a biopic. I did not look up the budget, no. But just, I mean, you could see the budget on the screen. I mean, you could see the...
Yeah, it doesn't look...
You know, in comparison to Lee... Yeah, it does not look made for TV. It definitely looks It looks like they're trying to get an Oscar, and that kind of has its own.
They could be successful.
Yeah, and honestly, that comes with its own set of risks too, where it could look too much money, it could look style over substance, all that kind of stuff. But Timothée Chalamet, for all of the accolades he gets, always brings it. And I've never seen a film with Timothée Chalamet where he's not one of the best parts of it. So the fact that we're getting a Bob Dylan movie in 2024, the fact that it took this long is fascinating to me, and because Bob Dylan is a fascinating character, and I'm not huge into music trivia, music history, all that kind of stuff, but I do love a good biopic, and the fact that we haven't gotten one so far, in amongst all of the other musical biopics before, this one looks like we're not just going to get the typical musical biopic. Like, this doesn't look like we're going to see, oh, Bob Dylan is going to start playing a random song, and he's going to stumble into his biggest hits. And then, random extras are going to start coming in going like, wow, that sounds good. All of the typical tropes that we get in these musical biopics, it doesn't look like we're getting those in this film. And then you throw in the fact...
My understanding is it's focused at a time when folkies played acoustic. And all of a sudden he went electric. And it's actually adapted from a book that's focused on that time in his career.
And he goes from being a complete unknown to being a worldwide. So that combined with the fact that it's being directed by James Mangold, who's done biopics before. He did Walk the Line. He's done so many great films.
Ford v Ferrari.
Yes, another great biopic. Mm-hmm. All of those are why it comes in at number one on my list. Yes, it does run the risk of being a little too predictable, a little too trying too hard, but in Timothée Chalamet and James Mangold, I trust. I can't name a single bad film that they've done. And then Edward Norton and Elle Fanning, brilliant young actress. I think this just has the look of a film that get a lot of Oscar nominations. I don't know whether it will or it won't, but Christmas Day release date has confidence for me. So
certainly,
that's why it's my number one. Yeah. Above all others, my number one film for fall and Christmas.
I'm going to push back on the quality thing briefly.
Yes.
He's also the same, while he did Logan.
I love Logan.
Touted, he also did the Wolverine. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Night and Day, a film you barely remember, and you'll forget after I mentioned it. Here's my take on this one, DMG.
Even Steven Spielberg has done 1941.
Exactly. I don't think this is a Spielberg thing. This is a regular and highly successful A-list director. Okay, the musician biopic is without a doubt my most detested of subgenres. And while Mangold is a A-list director who's made some great films, I think one of the reasons he is a consistently working A-list director is he delivers the film that the studio wants. He is a studio director. He is not some arty auteur, and he will. And so Dylan's still alive. This is a big studio number with a lot of big names. He'll manage all that, but I am not expecting anything special. That said, audiences who still remember who Dylan was, not a lot of people do, they'll probably be fine with it. They'll enjoy it because there is a market for this stuff. There are folks like yourself who love a good musician biopic. Me, I can't stand them. They
can be overdone.
They are the worst. But I do predict that it'll be a solid average film, maybe even on the high side. That doesn't necessarily get in the way of Oscars because you got Timothée Chalamet, you got these players. Mediocre films have still earned Oscars out of just solid flicks. Heck, Jim and I did a whole thing, an entire podcast on a forgettable Oscar winner, Best Picture Oscar winner, The King's Speech. Who the talks about that anymore? You know who?
I stand by that flick though. I like The King's Speech still. I don't talk about it a lot.
It's
but I do
perfectly
like
fine, but no one talks about it because it wasn't that great. It was good. And I think A Complete Unknown will be a perfectly average film, a good film, like on the positive side of average, but it will not be above average. In the long run, no one's going to be talking about it.
Now, where do you stand on Walk the Line?
Another film directed by who?
James Mangold.
James Mangold. But I think he was dead by then.
Yeah, just barely. He and Ray both kind of died at the same time.
Yeah.
Right before the films came out.
Yeah. Probably the last musician biopic I enjoyed, and it was pretty solid. I think, though, by the time I finally watched that, you'll notice I'm making a difference for what I think people think of it and its quality and what I just don't like this genre. Mostly because, especially when the musician's still alive, they just have their thumb on the scale. Bohemian Rhapsody,
Rocketman,
too close to these people who are still alive or people who have an axe to grind. You know, even Patton, one of the truly
not a musical biopic,
great
but yes.
War biopics. You know who looks really good in that? Bradley. Omar Bradley. Even though a lot of people, but I think he was the Secretary of the Army at the time. He was the one who got the film hooked up with all the Army crap they needed and all the troops they needed to have one of the last truly great big World War II pictures, because Omar Bradley was the special advisor. And so guess who gets to look good in Patton? Omar Bradley. And I think that is the cardinal sin of the vast majority of biopic. Really kind of more of a hagiography. It's not really, it's no longer that interesting. And I think that's why the musician biopic is not my, it's my most detested of subgenres. Oh, well,
and with that, I think
Brian, you didn't invite me on because I was so reticent with my opinion.
Yeah, no, I love having you on, and that's exactly why. But I think that's a good spot to wrap it up for this time. Rob Christensen, thank you for coming on. So, what do you think of our list? Let me know in the comments section below this video, and also let me know your top 11 movies that you're most excited to see in fall 2024. It's all about that conversation. Let's get that back and forth going in the comments section. I want to know. Also, be sure to click somewhere around in here. There's another video that the algorithm thinks that you'll like. Oh, hail the algorithm. How's that for a callback? Please be sure to click on one of these videos. It helps out with the algorithm. I've been Dragon Movie Guy. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.